the reason why how did the military know you were psychic? When you talked about going to Jesse Marcel's house, how did they become aware that you were psychic?
I was recruited out of high school. When I went to Houston, where you went to Robert E. Lee and I went to James Madison.
Right.
I got recruited out of a football game in the beginning, and then I got recruited out of a movie theater. I got recruited. Wow. And 3 times. There was 3 ways. So you can tell me. The 3rd time was with Yvonne McCutcheon. So I was with the Houston Spinnerettes, Ambassadors of Goodwill. Met Sonny and Cher, people that flew into Houston. We wore our little red outfits, cowboy hats, and, majorettes. I was a baton twirler dancer.
Right.
So 3 ways.
Right.
Yvonne recruited us, and all the paperwork was signed before I even graduated high school, but they didn't know I was only 15 at the time. They thought we were 18. But she had us fill out all the paperwork. We were still in school when we were graduating, so it's May 67. I went in May 10th, 67 legally. But my mother, I remember I had to take the paperwork home for my mother to sign it because she wasn't going to come to the meeting they had at a rec center type place. But it was all of us girls got recruited. Well, some of them didn't want to fill out the paperwork. Some didn't show up, about 8 out of 16, I think. But that's one way. But I was recruited 3 ways that I can recall, Debra. Now, but we can talk about that.
Wait, you were recruited into the military, but how did they know you were psychic?
Let's see. All right, I know I was using it in high school, and we talked about it. But I was at a football game. The first, I don't know, but I knew that I was psychic, but I was using it because I was exploring parapsychology with my boyfriend. But he was graduating with 5 scholarships. But
how did they know that you were psychic, TJ? How
did
the
military
know psychic?
I have no idea. That's a weird question.
Do. Okay, I'll
don't know how they know I was psychic.
Okay, I'll tell you how they knew. Okay, let me answer that. I know how they knew. They were watching you twirl knives and throwing them way up in the air while you spun around and catching them and never even getting a nick, because that was way beyond human abilities. And that made them attracted to you because that is some kind of psychic, kinetic, whatever you were doing, TJ, was not normal.
All right, so y'all can tell me this is my hero's journey. I'm trying to figure it out. So, but these are good questions. That's a good question. But we can suppose. I mean, who knows who is the government, right? These were men in black, as far as I'm concerned. But the guy wanted me to talk to him. This girl came up after during the high school and wanted me to talk to this guy. It was her father, and he couldn't believe those were real knives. So I had to bring him up to show him. I didn't want to go up there and talk to him at first.
Wait. You were twirling knives?
Yeah.
Yes, she was twirling knives.
Wait, I missed that part.
That's what I did. I twirled fire batons and machetes at those football games you and I used to go to.
My goodness.
Wow.
Holy cow. I had no idea. I missed that story.
Well, that would make them want you.
Anybody can twirl real nice, real sharp. I kept them sharp too. Yeah, 2 of them at a time.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they'd turn the lights off when we do fire.
How did you learn to do that?
I taught myself.
TJ, how did you learn to do that? That's what.
All right.
How did you teach yourself? What were you doing?
All right. To be fair, one of the girls that lived down the street on Diane Street in West Monroe was Janie Ferguson. And she was a major, she wore a uniform. I saw her out in her, we moved in onto Diane Street, and her daddy was Roach, Pat Roach. And Janie Ferguson twirled batons. So I wanted to learn, so I asked my mama if she'd pay her to teach me. So that was when I moved on Diane Street. So I got lessons from a teenager that, it was popular in the 50s, right? So,
I
but
guess
she didn't
so.
teach me to twirl knives. I just found a machete in my mom's garage one day and started playing with it, and then I found another one, and I don't know what they were doing with them. Maybe it's my brother's. I don't know. But I just started twirling them and found out I could do it. I don't know I just did it. It was fun. I could twirl. I'd scare this heck out of my mother. I'd twirl and spin it and catch it behind my back in the front yard. But Mother would, oh, my God. And she couldn't make me quit. So I was enjoying myself.
That is a talent, right?
Wow.
This is Suzanne speaking. But that's a talent. So talk about the talent of being fearless to pick up a knife and start learning how to twirl it. That's not a girl item,
Well, I had a lot of boys.
Did somebody train you, TJ?
No, I trained myself.
Or were you just always gifted? You did it yourself. That's great.
Well, time. So we learned how to twirl in the 50s. I'm sure it's still, I was in that USTA, United States Twirling Association, but girls did that. I mean, I had to learn everything. I had to learn to ride a horse, play a piano, play the trumpet, play the French horn, twirl batons, twirl machetes, twirl fire batons. I was very active. I was on the
Did you ever have an accident with the knives in any way with the practice?
Never hurt myself. No.
Wow.
Everybody thought I
Never.
was going to. I didn't think like that. I didn't even think like that. I thought it was funny when people thought I would. But to answer Deborah's question, we can suspect that since he said he was with the government, I don't know. He didn't tell me what branch. She just said her dad worked for the government, and he told me, he called me under the bleachers to talk to me and said, how would I like to work for the government? So I said, okay. I didn't care. I didn't know what it meant. He bought me a hot dog.
That's how you got found, because you had a fearless talent. So that's the beginning of the story. I like that.
Okay, we'll start there.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Okay.
That's great.
So
but
talk about how
I know the story. Okay, Janet wants that. Wait, let me go. I want to flesh out the second one. Because we were going to see a James Bond movie. This is, what year was that, 1966 or something? James Bond was really popular.
It was either 66
and so tell everybody real slow. So tell everybody that story. So you're in a James Bond movie, and then what happens?
Me and Steve, my boyfriend had the 5 scholarships, and he took me to a James. We were just starting to date and everything, but I'd seen him take a real pretty girl to the band at James Madison. We were in the first year. It's the first year the school was built. It was all white, maybe one token black person. But they had the band, what they call that? Band, banquet. And he took this real pretty dancer that danced with, I got in that dance club, Patsy Swayze's mama, Patrick Swayze. And so I was real impressed with that. And I was impressed because we brought the prettiest girl to the band banquet, but she wasn't from our high school. But I sort of resented that, so it caught my attention. I had this, she's not even go to our high school. What's she doing at our band banquet? So that's how he got my attention. And then I found out later. But he took me to the, I think it was Windsor, somewhere in downtown Houston to go see a James Bond movie. And when it's over with, it was a big crowd. It was like the premiere or some tons of people. And everybody's leaving towards the front where you normally come in and leave. Everybody knows what a theater looks like, and it was a big one in Houston. But these men come up in suits. I always call them the Men in Black because that's popular. But they literally were in suits. And one got the crowd's leaving, and me and him are leaving. We just got up. I remember where we were sitting. It was so crowded, and we got there in between, not late, but we couldn't sit in the middle. I know in my mind, the video that plays, we were on the right. You know how they had the middle, and then some on the right and some on the left. So we were on the shorter side on the right. So we get up to go up that aisle, one on each side of and we're going out, and halfway up the incline, all of a sudden a man gets in front of me and a man gets in back of me, and they separate me and him, and there's some of them, and they're like, no, come on, we're going, no, you're coming with us, and they strong-armed us through the crowd, and people, they just passed us by and pushed us out the side door, and it was happening so fast, you just sort of go with them. It's weird because you're teenagers and you don't know what's going on. So they pushed us out the side door out on the cement where some steps go down, and on the end of it was a man smoking a cigarette like in X-Files.
Oh, yeah.
And he looked up and talked to me and Steve and asked us how we'd like to work for the government again. That's how you know it's the government, but they don't ever say nothing, just again. And, they were talking to Steve and everything, and then he said he was talking to Steve and asked him a couple of questions, and they looked at me, and they said, no, you, how would you like to do, first of all, they started off talking to us, but like they were interviewing the movie, like, well, so what did you think of the movie? And, what do you think of James Bond? So it was small talk with the men to make us feel better, I guess, small talk. But I thought just like being interviewed for me, oh, well, that was pretty good, blah, blah. So they were talking to him about that, and then they looked at me, and the guy was smoking a cigarette, like that X-Files, looks up, because we're on the top, the cement part where you walk out the door. They kept us enclosed in the men, and he was at the bottom, by himself smoking the cigarette. He had one foot up on the step, standing there like, with a hand in his pocket, smoking a cigarette with his one foot propped up, real cool, and trying to impress us, I guess. But so he looked at me. He said, "No, how would you like to do that, James Bond?" Because they were talking to Steve, but he said, "No, you. How would you think of that? How would you like to do?" I said, "The girl, like, oh yeah, that's pretty." Blah blah. Something. He said, "No, like James Bond." I was like, "Oh, okay," but we just agreed or whatever. But it was just a conversation about I thought the movie and asking us if we wanted to work for the government. So we said okay, and they said, "Well, don't mention it to anybody," or blah blah blah. So we just left in the car and started talking. But they said don't mention it, and he said, "Wow." Well, Tom. I mean, it wasn't Tom. It was Steve. I get my husbands mixed up. Sorry, but it was Steve. So he's the boyfriend. So we mentioned it, but we didn't even mention it to our parents again. We didn't. It just. I don't know. It's just when you're teenagers, it was sort of cool, but it wasn't such a big deal. We didn't even talk about it anymore. I don't know why, but
so
that's
what happened?
The second time.
Did they ever approach you again? How do you know that the third time was the?
Let's see.
The military faction that wants to recruit you.
I don't know which one came first.
Now,
to be honest, Janet.
Who's Yvonne McCutcheon?
She ran she worked for the government. I think she recruited people out of high school. She had the Houston Spinnerets. I don't know.
Okay. Well, what do you know? Tell us what you do know, and then we'll piece it together. So how do you think she was with the military recruiting people? What made you think that?
She's the one that had us ask.
You're breaking up.
Yeah.
Theresa, can you reposition your mouth, please?
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Yeah, thanks.
You're breaking up. Yes.
I'm sorry. I took it off as speaker while I talk. Okay. And okay, what was the question? I'm sorry, I'm lost again.
So Janet, can I ask her the question for a second? So we're listening to the sequence of events that you're doing, and you're explaining it to us. And what we're trying to keep in perspective is we're trying to get an accurate timeline. So you've told us about the two approaches. Now tell us about the third approach. And you have to really trust that because you know more than you're aware of, and you have to feel supported in that process. So I'm going to support you in that process, and I'm going to tell you you do know, and it's okay to share it.
Okay. Well, that feels good. Okay, so.
Good.
I like that.
Okay. That's beautiful.
But you said 3. Okay, so we did. We're doing Yvonne McCutcheon's, right? The lady. Is that what we're doing? Yvonne?
Yes. That's where we're
Yvonne, at. Okay, my dad. I had questions because my dad. It was my stepdad because my mom had a bunch of kids. I was the oldest of 7 kids, and she just had a baby. So, she was pregnant because she didn't have Tish till November '67. So I know it was the government, but my dad Mama was asking questions about the government and the paperwork. Mama was curious